want to let everyone know the structure today, and for anyone listening, sorry about the bit of a waiting gap, but today's structure is going to be a little different to the way we normally run it, other than the fact that Mick will keep an eye on any questions that are in the chat box. You are welcome to take your phone off mic and ask a question, but if you can keep it on mute while the lovely Megan is answering, what we're going to do, the structure will be that I'll ask Megan some questions. We're going to kind of do it a bit like an interview style. So I have got a number of questions here, and I'll probably fire a few off the top of my head. And certainly, if you've got questions, fire them to Mick, and Mick will do his best to keep on top of that. And so we might get started. We're 5 minutes in, and the lovely Megan looks like she's ready to give us a bit of an insight. So Megan, what I'll do before I'll sort of keep asking individual questions, what I'm going to do, if it's all right with you, is maybe just give people a bit of an insight into where you're at right now, and then we can sort of go backwards a little bit.
So part of the reason where I'm just getting on the call a few minutes late is because I travel full time with my family. So we just have been racing to get to our next destination in order to get here and get internet to be on this call. So I do apologize. I was a couple of minutes late, but we got here. We got a little bit lost, which is part of the joys of traveling. So I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, a boy and a girl. And we travel. My husband's name's Kamei. And we, for the past couple of years, I had been working, and I had been building a business in order to retire my husband. He worked as an engineer with CN Rail and was making a very good income, a 6-figure income, but we had no life. And I had always, been a person who had a lot of dreams and a big vision for myself and a big vision for my life and what I wanted to do. And I kind of lost my way between a mortgage and college debt and, having kids, being a mom and all that kind of stuff. And that you get caught up in that in life, right? Like with what the cultural norms are around you, the things that you kind of are ingrained in you, that this is how life should be. This is how life is for everyone. And I fell into that as well. And allowed that to penetrate into my psyche, into my belief and my acceptance of how I was to live. And sometimes you get to that point where you've had enough and you're like, we don't have a life. We're not passionate about what we're doing. We're just existing to pay the bills, basically, was what's going on. My kids are growing up on YouTube, like just all these things that you look at your life and you're like, is this it? Like, is this all there is? Is this all that is here for me to experience? Like, what's the point of just doing this and then maybe retiring someday? And so there was some things that started to kind of tick off in my brain. I started to kind of wake up a little bit. And I started into network marketing. I got a product for the health benefits, and then obviously was exposed to entrepreneurship, which was something I was not familiar with before that. I grew up in a small town, grew up on a farm. You work really, really hard and you barely have enough money. Like, that was my awareness. And that's, what I understood to kind of be like the way life was. So this concept of, multiple streams of income and building money passively and having your own business, like it was a lot of new stuff to me. And it just so happened that one of the videos that came from the company was of Bob Proctor. And that is when my life changed. Like, honestly, the most I had ever made at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I was just freelancing as a graphic designer. But before that, I had worked in an office full time. The most I had ever made was $30,000 in a year. It was a program that I was running, that was that limit, that mental sort of point that I could not overcome in my life. That was just what was normal for me. So when I started listening to Bob and started changing my beliefs and changing what I understood as possible, that's when it was about a matter of maybe 2 years of you know, a lot of effort, a lot of days of wanting to quit, a lot of tears, but eventually breaking through and, you know, having, you know, hitting that $100,000 a month income that, you know, was something that before was never even, I didn't even, it was not in my radar. It wasn't something I could grasp even. And just by changing my thinking, by changing my vibration, by changing what I believed, I was able to create something that most people, you know, never think is even possible, let alone want for themselves. So now my husband's out of his job. We travel. We're traveling Canada right now. We've got ourselves planning for at least a year, possibly more. We have no agenda because we have nothing that we have to be back for. We're not committed to a job or a location. So that is a bit about me and where we are right now. And is that do you want to hear more about what I do, or is that good for that part of it?
No, that's, I wanted people to sort of get a picture of sort of where you're from, and I'm glad you mentioned how long. There are a few moments where I was going to butt in and ask you a couple of things, but you kept answering them. In regards, I think a lot of people would like to know, which you've given us a good overview on, like how long it takes, you know, what needs to change. And the thing that, and because I know you a little bit from our discussions, and I know it hasn't been easy. I've heard and I've seen the pain in your face at times. So I know that it's not, you know, it's not smooth sailing. You know, you don't just get on that track for success. And I know in my own life, you don't just get on that track for success and then everything's smooth sailing. So I guess, you know, could you give maybe a bit of an insight into what it takes? So when you first started a couple of years ago, you mentioned about, you know, the most you'd ever earned was $30,000. And it's probably one of Bob's first questions. He certainly asked me that when I met him. So with that, you know, what needed to take place? How did it start for you? What reprogramming? How did you reprogram yourself to get started?
I actually just wrote a short little book on this very thing, and it's not what people think most of the time. People I know that's how I understood it. We get very caught up in the strategy. Okay, what business am I going to do? How am I going to invest my money? And you know, that's important, but that's about 1%, you know, and the force, like the action, like there's this conception, this idea out there of the grind. You have to grind and you have to work so hard and you have to put in these long days and all this kind of stuff. And it's not true. It's the mental work, which is the harder work, that has to happen. And I say that because that is what I'm going to explain what I did. It's not that I did this business and then I did this and I invested my money in this investment and then this happened. Da, 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 da. That's not what it was. It was changing the program, and it was changing my thought process and my vibration. And then I decided what I wanted. You know, I had an idea, a thought, a definite decision on what it was that I wanted, which we hear from Napoleon Hill. You have to decide what you want and get a burning desire for its achievement. And that's what I did. So sometimes even the struggle that somebody might have, and I felt sometimes I had, was, well, I don't have the burning desire for it. Because the epidemic that we have in North America is things are just good enough that you're okay. You know, you have a house and a car and, you know, you pay your bills and you eat good food and all, you go on a vacation once a year, but, you know, so you're afraid of losing it. So you're kind of in this like lethargic kind of state where, because if you hear the story from a lot of very successful people, at one point in time, they've been at rock bottom, which has created that burning desire for something more because they felt so strongly what they don't want, which has created that massive desire for what they do want. So I had to create, you know, I wasn't at rock bottom. Like my husband had a 6-figure job. We had a house. The kids were happy and healthy. Like there wasn't like this difficult situation in my life that all of a sudden catapulted me into something more. I would say things were not easy and things were challenging, but not any dire situation. So for me, you can change a Bob says this, might be Abraham, I'm not sure it is, but you can change a paradigm two ways, either by a traumatic event or by repetition. And so I did it through repetition. So what I did was autosuggestion, and I started out not really understanding autosuggestion. I would just write stuff out over and over again, and I would just write it out, and I just go through the motions of writing it out, and that doesn't work. Feeling is the secret. If you haven't read or listened to Neville Goddard's book, Feeling is the Secret, it's really short. Write that one down. That's really important, because why people will say the law of attraction or, all this stuff doesn't work is because they're missing the very important piece of emotion and feeling. If autosuggestion is not, like if writing out your goal or writing out something over and over again doesn't create emotion for you, it's not really helping you all that much, other than sort of at least you're doing something to move towards that. So for me, it was more powerful for me to move into visualization so that I could feel what it would feel like to have what I wanted. So at the beginning, I was visualizing $10,000 a month. So I would go through the process of what it was like to open my door and feel the wind on my face and reach into my mailbox and take out that check for $10,000 and run back into the house so excited and tell Aramai, just like create that emotion in myself in order to get into that vibration of receiving what I want, because what we want is on a frequency. Usually people are vibrating way below what it is that they want. You're on this frequency. So in order to receive that which you want, you have to elevate yourself to the frequency that it's on, which is done by emotion and feeling. And that's what I did. So, and then I listened to subliminal messages as I slept. There's a window of time right before you fall asleep. And when you wake up, it's alpha, where your subconscious, your conscious is more open. And then things get into the subconscious a lot faster. So I would turn on subliminal, like I am affirmations for abundance, success, all that kind of stuff. And I would put it on as I went to bed, play it all through the night. And then as I woke up in the morning, listen to it a bit, and then spend that first time in the morning visualizing my day and visualizing what I wanted and feeling as if it was already there. I live more in my dream than I do in my physical reality. So sometimes when I all of a sudden I'm like become aware of my physical reality, it's like, oh, it's almost like a jolt kind of thing. So to get into that space where you feel like what you want is already there. Those are a few things awesome. That there's more, but I think that's good.
No, that's great. And look, I'm obviously a lot earlier on my journey than you are, and I can actually agree to where I am right now is a lot of what you've done, and I probably need to do a bit more if I'm honest. But I think for a lot of people, and I'm sure you'd agree, like sometimes, and you sort of touched on it before, where you said people think there's a sort of order to trying to make it all happen in the physical world, in your actual reality, in your conscious habits right now. But as you're alluding to with everything that you've been doing, it's about getting into that subconscious mind, and it's really good that you're outlining some of those things for people to realize. And I'm sure you'd agree, like it's about getting started, it's not getting overwhelmed with everything, and realizing that, these things do take time. And as you said at the very start, with having the $30,000 a year mentality, that's over many years, and it's also through your family genality, conditioning, whatever you want to put it. Yeah. So, so how long would you say it really took you to get firing on all cylinders?
Oh man. Well, I would say when I jump into something, I go all in. So everybody's journey is different. Like I see some people, they've studied Bob for years, but haven't really done anything, or they haven't applied it. They listen and everything or read the books, but don't utilize it. So when I started, I used it like from quite early on. And when he said to do something, I did it. So I would do visualization. Because even just the act of visualization, people won't do it. Right as soon as I started the coaching program, I joined a mastermind. And I'm still a part of that mastermind that meets every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and we don't miss a call. And that's been going on for, I don't know, 2.5 years. So from day one, I would say, of being with Bob's program, it's been 2.5 years. When did things all of a sudden sort of shift and the money, just because the majority of that time I wasn't making money. I was putting a lot of money into my businesses. I was investing money. I probably went in debt about $70,000. I sold my house to pay off that debt. It wasn't like easy from the very beginning, which sometimes people don't see and aren't willing to do what it takes. Like, would you go into debt to go to the paradigm shift or any of Bob's events? Would you go into debt to take his coaching program? Would you go into debt to invest in a business? Would you lose sleep? Would you go through what it sometimes takes in order to apply what you're learning? And then sell your house to pay it off.
Can I touch on that? Because I think that's actually probably, in my opinion, because I've been through it, it's how do people get to the stage where they know that they can have faith in doing that? And I guess I was going to ask you before I got to that question, with your family, so with your husband, spending this sort of money on something, was he doing the work at the same time with you, or did you just, say, this is where I'm at, I'm believing in everything I need to do, trust me, let's do it? Or how did it all come about?
I definitely initiated everything, but he was always supportive. Sometimes kind of like as anybody would be, because it's new and it's different and it's more money into stuff like that, and just kind of a little bit hesitant, but always then supportive. Like, we've done every event together. We do our mastermind together. So I am very blessed to have a husband that's very supportive, because I see a lot of people that don't have that. And it can add an extra element of challenge. It's not an excuse and it's not a reason to hold you back, but it is another thing, another maybe weight as you're moving forward that's, makes the pull maybe a bit more. But I have, he's always been very supportive, and he would go to work and make the money and I would spend it on different stuff, because, and he never made me feel guilty about it. He never made me feel bad about it. He was always, and on the days that I was like, I should just quit and give up on this. Like, it's not working. He would be like, no, it's going to turn around. So yeah, I'm really blessed.
Yeah, and that's, and in saying that, because I know, well, from what you're telling me with your husband being supportive, I know the other side of the coin, it isn't the same, with the rest of the family. So, and I think obviously not everyone's going to have that kind of support from their partner. I was going to say the sibling, that's not the right word, from their partner, or their family, in general. So I guess, and from what I know and from what you've just told us, would you agree that people have to go through, planting the seeds of success in doing these, whether it's the affirmations, whether it's the vibrational music at night, the I am, I listen to those before you head to sleep. So if you could give someone, let's say someone hasn't started properly, like you mentioned before about people, reading a bit of Bob's material or reading some self-help, personal development, and not really taking action. And people are, sitting on the sidelines. And as you and I know, once you make a committed decision, in your mind, forget about the money. Once you make a committed decision, things start to change.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to help, say, someone here today or someone that's going to watch it later on? How do they get started? What would you say? What would be the first step?
Well, I remember when I made, my first decision to do something that was scary and was a lot of money. My kids are distracting me at the moment. Ermai, can you please take them out? So that they're playing with a fan. Sorry. This is another reality of working from home. And if you've ever watched any of my webinars, half the time the kids are coming in and doing all kinds of stuff that makes me get off track. But what I did was I went through the process of what I would lose. I thought mentally, what will I lose by not doing this? So does that make sense? What will I lose if I don't do this? Because we often think about what we will lose if we do it. Well, what if it doesn't work and I lose $10,000? What if I look like an idiot? What if my friends all laugh at me? Whatever the things are that we think about. But what are you going to lose if you don't do it and it works? What if it works? And I just went through that conversation with myself, and ultimately I thought I could miss out on, because we all have a fear of missing out. There is that in us, that fear. That's why we'll buy, we'll make a buying decision because we're afraid of missing out on a sale. There's this thing in us, we don't want to miss out. So when I thought about all the things, when I went through, if I don't do this, what about what's going to happen with my kids? What about all my future descendants? What about, I really went down that path of, in this point in time, who Megan is and the choice that I have to go this way or that way, or to stay, which is the worst thing, is to stay and go nowhere, and how many lives I will or will not impact. For me, it was a matter of the people that would not, their lives that wouldn't be changed, my own children and what I wanted for them and for their future and for what they believe and understand is possible for their own lives. And ultimately the experience of this lifetime. We have so much time, and then that's it as far as we understand. And I had too much to lose. There was way too much more to lose by not doing it, by not making the change. And that's what helped me push me over the edge into doing it. And I have also developed a habit of taking action. And this is something that I also can contribute even to a younger age. No one in my family had ever traveled. No one had ever gone to college. No one had left the tiny little town. And at 17 years old, I jumped on a plane and headed over to Africa, to work in orphanages and stuff like that. And I was terrified. I cried in the car the whole way to the airport. It was terrifying for me, but I developed the habit. When something scared me, I would do it. I couldn't swim. I couldn't swim. I was terrified of water. So I signed up for a triathlon and forced myself to learn how to swim because I was afraid of it. And the first time I actually almost drowned. I was the last one out of the water, and they had to come rescue. I wouldn't get in the boat, but they came beside me. And so then I took lessons and got better. And then I won gold 2 years later. But I would force myself to do that which I feared. And I just kind of developed that muscle, which has then made this process in terms of taking into the financial, into what Bob says, and facing the terror barrier, something that isn't so unfamiliar because I've done it before. And you can develop that habit and start with small stuff. Are you afraid, to eat oysters? I don't know, something that is small that you can tackle first and start developing the habit of doing something that you don't want to do, or you're afraid to do, or that's a bit scary, and then get bigger and bigger, and eventually you just become that, and it's easier for you to take action and to do. And when you are inspired to take action, there's about a 48-hour window. And if you don't take action in that 48-hour window after inspiration, the chances of you doing it goes down to like a few percent. So it's important to do it quick and develop the habit of doing it quick, because you'll talk yourself out of it. It's just a self-preservation built-in mechanism that we all have. So taking action quickly is important.
That's awesome. And, you know, from what you just told us there, it definitely tells me, and I know from experience, that you building that mental muscle and understanding when you're at that terror barrier, when you're at that point of having to make that decision, and a really important decision. And one of the things that I've done is I think about, does it serve me? Does it serve me moving forward towards, you know, my greater purpose? And tell me if I'm wrong, but having a definiteness of purpose, as Napoleon Hill calls it, actually having that definite purpose where you know what you're working towards, not just a big C-type goal, but actually knowing what is important for you lifelong, and not just about you. You mentioned before about all the people that could miss out if I don't actually succeed, or if I don't make this decision. You know, that, would you say that, I mean, you already have, you said that that's, you know, an important factor in you actually making those decisions. And I think for most people out there, and I've spoken to quite a few over this last 7 months that I've been, you know, serious about the journey. And you mentioned earlier about sometimes going through what we might call a very negative emotional period to actually make a positive decision. And it certainly happened for me nearly 5 years ago. And so I guess question on, you know, you mentioned about going through certain things at an early age to, I guess, even get you to that point where you started this journey. So I guess what I wanted to know is, what advice would you have to other people that are, you know, thinking, like, they're hearing everything you're saying and they go, that really makes a lot of sense, but, you know, how will I actually know that what I'm going to do, or what I think is my purpose, how will I know that that's the right thing for me?
Well, I'll tell you right now, when I started out, I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't have it all figured out. And, you know, it's usually the start that stops most people. You want to have it all figured out before you even get going. And so you never get going because you'll never get it all figured out. It's one of those things where you jump and develop the wings along the way. So, you know, I started in a certain network marketing company, and at the beginning thought that was my purpose. It was my purpose to change people's change people's life through water. And so but I took action. So sometimes there just needs to be movement. Just move. Just do something. Just, you know, go in some direction. And usually, like, even when you look at people, like, say, Gary Vee, he's living his passion, he's doing what he loves. You know, he started out doing videos on wine, you know, like, it's one of those things that you kind of grow into and you figure out as you go. And so because I also help people who want to be affiliate marketers, and, you know, so it's building a Facebook page and doing all that kind of stuff. And I see the same thing so often, that everybody's so concerned about figuring out exactly who their target audience is and what their niche is and what kind of posts to do and what their brand's going to look like and what they should call their page and all this kind of stuff, that they don't ever start. And the thing is, I've made, you know, so many different Facebook pages and shut them down and built websites that now I don't even use. I've spent thousands of dollars on funnels that are useless now. But as I did those things, I figured out and got clear, because how do you know what you don't like until you try it? How do you know it doesn't work for you until you try it? You know, if you go to a buffet of food, none of it you've never tried, and you don't know anything, and you think, okay, I want to just do what is just perfect for me and that I love is going to be so amazing. And that I know is just going to satisfy all my flavorful desires and will make me feel fulfilled and satisfied and full and all this kind of stuff. But you've never tried any of it. You don't know whether you like that or this or the salads or the soups or whatever. So how are you going to figure that out without trying some of the stuff? And as you try some pie, you're like, oh, I love pie. And then you try some lobster, you're like, oh, that's terrible. I'm not going to eat any more of that. So just move and just try some stuff, because the fear of failure, you think, well, I'm going to try and it's not going to work. That's okay. The failure is part of the learning and figuring out. Esther Hicks talks about experiencing the contrast, right? When you experience what you don't want, that's why when people hit rock bottom, it catapults them into something amazing, because they get such a strong clarity on what they want. So when you go through some stuff that doesn't work and be like, I actually don't really like this. Some people think, oh, I want to be, a public speaker and I want to go and travel the world. And then they start doing it and realize, I hate traveling and I don't like going all over the place and I miss my family, and it's not everything that you thought it was. But how would you know that until you did it? And so just to get started in something, and just the action of moving and the putting out the desire that you want clarity, you'll get it and you'll find it and you'll start to feel, I love this and I don't like this. This is something that I thought was amazing and it's not for me. And it will get clearer as you go, because, Bob talks about just get to the first step, do that first step, and then you'll see how to take the next one, right? Like you can't figure out all the way to the end right from the very beginning.
What you've said there is extremely powerful, and I want to repeat that, because I know myself, and even recently I've had to keep an eye on the fact of when I'm trying to control an outcome or control a situation, or will I do this because what will the outcome be? And what you're explaining there, and I love that food analogy, because I'm really picky with food. So I know even in that analogy itself, it's such a real life thing. There's times where I need to try some of those dishes. And when I've had friends that have actually said, oh, try this, and I feel bad if I don't try it, and I've tried it, I've gone, oh, that actually is good,
Yeah.
And so, and that's such a good, I'm glad you brought that analogy up, because it really sunk home for me. But on that key point, that I think is where a lot of people have their ideas stillborn, because they're so busy. And you mentioned about a 48-hour window. I love that. I hadn't heard that before, but it makes so much sense. I thought it was 48 seconds. It feels like it needs to be that long. But on that, I think that's so important. And it comes down to making a decision. But the decision sometimes is about just taking action, and it might be the wrong decision, as you've outlined, but that helps you. You don't fail until you stop. So, and I think that to me, out of everything that you've said, is probably the most vital, important thing that you've actually just said. People need to actually just try stuff. If something feels good, it sounds good, let's give it a go. Let's try this, see how it works. It might not work, might work.
Yeah.
And you've, I know you've had, and actually might touch on it now. You've had, you mentioned about hitting rock bottom. Like, you've had some big, what people might consider failures, but some big drops.
Oh yeah.
Would you mind sharing one?
I could share.
just the idea of it. You don't have to say what it is.
Well, I would say, I don't know which one to share. I guess I'll choose a more recent one. So when I was started, like the thing that happens to us when we start down this path into self-development, entrepreneurship, and all that kind of stuff is the shiny object syndrome. So you learn about, oh, I can have my own business. I can be financially free. I can quit my job. I can make all this money and be rich and have cars and all this kind of stuff. And it's all very exciting. And then we slip very quickly into the how. How am I going to do all this sort of thing? And we still haven't become fully aware of really what we're capable of doing, and that it's what we are really possible. We don't believe in ourselves, what we can create in our life. And so we think it's the thing that's going to make us successful. So we think, oh, I'll try real estate. Oh, well, there's more money in e-commerce, so I'm going to try that. And I did that. So I started with my network marketing company, and then I started to learn. I met Bob, and then, you know, you get into all this community of all these entrepreneurs, and so I met all these different ways of making money. And so I tried e-commerce, I tried Shopify, and I spent hours learning about it, and I built a store, and I put products up and everything, and it wasn't working for me. And I tried email marketing and bought, like, whatever his name is, that's huge into that anyways, and bought his course. Like, these aren't just like $200 courses. These are thousands of dollars courses, you know, buying a real estate course for probably $15,000 or something, you know, going to the paradigm shifts every time. Like, both my husband and I would go, and we VIP, it's the only way to go. So we do VIP, you fly out there, you know, the accommodation. So each trip would be thousands and thousands of dollars. And I was at a point where we were in debt, probably $70,000. At that point, it was about $70,000. Aramai was still working his job, and he was hardly ever home. And so I was trying to run a business, multiple businesses, while being a mom, almost like a single mom. And there was just so much stuff, and it just wasn't working. Nothing was working. My business wasn't taking off. Like, people were just, I was hearing all these stories of people that were successful, but it wasn't happening for me. And I wasn't seeing that success, and I wasn't having that breakthrough. I wasn't having that, you know, where everything was just working and flowing. And I was seeing other people being successful that started where I started, and, you know, it wasn't happening to me. And all this stuff was just piling up. And it was just like, I was literally, like, I think I was laying on the floor, probably face down on the floor. And I was just like, I think it's time to quit. I think it's time to give up. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to happen for me. Maybe, you know, like, it was just that real defeated feeling, and feeling bad for, you know, like, I had family members that were not happy with me, you know, not talking to me, friends that I had lost in the process of wanting to create this new person. Because Megan before was pretty shy and pretty, like, you know, reserved. I don't know what I was, like, not motivated or whatever. So, and always worried what people think about me, and wanting to make everybody happy and please everybody. And so I was going, you know, I grew up in a traditional Christian background. I had, you know, a woman approach me saying I was doing terrible things, talking about the law of attraction, and that how could I call myself a Christian? So I had people attacking me too. You know, I had a family member say, if this is what success looks like, then I don't want anything to do with it, because of who I was becoming. They didn't like who I was turning into. So I just had all this stuff going on, and my business wasn't working. I wasn't making money. I was going more in debt. I was putting all this stuff in, and I wasn't seeing the results yet. And if it wasn't for Aramai, my husband, probably I would have quit. I'm thinking I would have quit. And partially because I was so far into it, there's this point where you put in so much that you don't even have the option of going back. Like, it's not really there. You can't just, you put in all this money and time and energy and effort. You're too committed. You've done too much. And so that's when, you know, I was working with a consultant at the time, David Conway, which he's he's top sales guy for Bob right now. And he suggested about selling our house, because I had that weight of the debt, and I was vibrating debt and lack and limitation. And so he was the one that suggested, why don't you sell your house, pay it all off, start over. And I think releasing that burden of the debt that you're feeling will help you. And when we did that, it just changed. That's when things really changed for us. It's like it was a fresh start. I felt, my thinking started to shift. We moved into we brought another house. Like obviously what we had built, the equity we had built of our house was used to pay off the debt and buy another house, put a down payment on another house. And it was a home that just felt really wonderful. It had a beautiful view and different things like that. And because my energy shifted, because that weight was gone, and because I began to learn how to be happy and feel good despite of my circumstances, that was a huge lesson learned through all of that. Then things just began to work. Like it honestly, if you read in Think and Grow Rich, there's the chapter on persistence, and it talks about a guide and tells all these stories about these people who would, whether it's singers or business people or whatever, would try and face rejection and defeat and rejection and defeat, and things wouldn't work. And it was like, there was, like Napoleon talked about, it was like there's that guide that kind of goes with you and watches, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, you've passed the test, you've stayed persistent, you've stayed the course despite all this stuff. Open up the floodgates, and now it's everything that you could possibly want comes your way. And I think it's so true, and you see it in people's lives, and that's what happened for us. The floodgates opened, and we saw everything that we were wanting come to us.
That word persistence is so imperative, and I know that from experience as well. And I certainly haven't made as bigger decisions as you have, and having the support, is really important, and as you said, like a lot of the other outside influences, your, Christian family, upbringing, everything, not everyone is going to enjoy watching you go on this ride, and everyone's going to be an expert and have advice and tell you what you need to be doing. And usually those people are not doing the things they're telling that you should be doing. So I guess that's, for me, and I'm sure everyone else, that part that you've just explained, a lot of people are making the decisions or think they're making certain decisions to actually, what is that noise in the background? Sorry, is there someone got their thing unmuted, or might be Nate. I'm just going to mute you, Nate. Sorry, Nate. Sorry, Megan, can you hear me? Yeah. So, persistence, and actually realizing that, the journey, I'm going to say, if you're making the right decisions, which may seem like the wrong ones, it's not going to be a smooth sailing road along the way, but what can you actually learn from it? What can you get out of it that helps you to make the next decision better?
Exactly.
Would that be what you'd say? So, and like everything you've explained, like I'm sure I'm talking for everyone, like what you've explained is such a, you're a normal person. You're like all of us, and I shouldn't say there's nothing special about you, because there is something special about you, but that's the beauty of this story that I've loved, and which is why I really wanted to get you on so people could hear, because anybody can do what you're doing. Anybody has the ability to do it, but it all starts with making a decision. It all starts with doing the things that you need to do to build up that strength. And one thing that, I know not everyone is going to be able to have, but having a support person who believes in what you're doing and sees the work that you've put in. And I have to say, the reason why Aramai has not given up on you is because he knows the effort and the energy and the belief that you've had in the dream, and he's on that ride with you. So, I'm sure, it's not a one-way story. You're the face of the family, but I'm sure, without him, you wouldn't be where you are right now.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can even say back to when we first met, because I met Aramai in India. I was traveling, and we met in New Delhi, and it was, you know, it was taboo for us at that time to have any kind of relationship, or to, you know, be involved for multiple reasons that I won't go into. So we, and the organization that I was traveling with, you know, didn't, they did not allow me to speak to him. So we had about 6 months till I was done with them, where we want to remain, you know, above reproach. And so we just said, okay, we won't talk to each other. But we were apart for 2 years, you know, physically we were apart, where we communicated, you know, just with phone, or at the time there was no iPhone stuff. It was like Yahoo chat or something, I don't know, but we talked over that and email. And there was many times even along then that I was like, this is too hard. I don't want to, like, and it was Aramai who's like, would always sort of be that strong kind of calm. I'm more like all up and down, and he's more steady. And he would just be like, his solution, let's just pray about it. Let's just take some time. And, you know, he would be the one that would calm me down and hold the vision of what we wanted. We knew we wanted to be together, and ultimately kept us afloat and kept us going. And he's been that during this journey as well. So yeah, it is a gift and a real blessing that I have that we have that as a couple, that we're on the same page. You know, not everybody, you know, a spouse would be on the same page, getting up and renting out your house and traveling for a year, you know, and giving up all those sort of norms. So we are blessed that we do see eye to eye on a lot of things. And but that being said, I do have a good chunk of people in my life that oppose what I'm doing. And I want to bring that up, because if you are someone who's like, well, Megan, she's got a supportive spouse, so of course she can do it, you know, and whatever that thing is, we all have those things, the paradigms that say, well, it worked for them, it won't work for me, or they have this and I don't, or, you know, you play that game with yourself. You know, I'm a single mom and she's not. Whatever it is, we all have our thorns. We all have our stuff. I have my stuff. You know, I have my challenges. I have certain members in my family that make things quite difficult at times and make it hard. So just because I have something that you might not doesn't mean that I have something that you don't. Right? So yeah. I want people to see that. Yeah, I'm super blessed with that, but don't see that, if you don't have it, as a limitation for yourself. Because you have some other thing that I don't have, that I might think, oh, wow, they have that and I don't. So of course they can succeed and I can't. Sometimes I look at young people, these millennials that are making all kinds of money, and I think, of course they can do it. They're not married and they don't have kids, and they can sleep in their mom's basement while they, you know, all these things that you might tell yourself. You know, it's not, all of it is just a paradigm. You can do it regardless of your situation.
I agree. And thanks, Megan. And hey, look, we've got 8 minutes to go of the hour allotment. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to put it over to Nick. Nick's going to ask some of the questions. We've got a few people asking you questions, which is awesome. So over to Nick.
Yeah, thank you. What do we got for questions? Hannah doesn't have a question because Megan is awesome at explaining things. We says, as soon as you feel good about yourself and being happy with yourself, that is the turnaround to be successful. As soon as you feel good about. So what Weiss is looking for is an explanation about what success is, a short definition.
Well, my favorite is success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Because success is different for everybody. What is your worthy ideal? For some people, the life I'm living right now is not what they will want. They don't want to be traveling. Their vision of success is a mansion on a hilltop overlooking wet water, or whatever their thing is. You know, everybody has a different idea. But if success is just moving towards your ideal for you, whatever that might be, and it's different for everyone.
Okay. And Nate is asking, no, Nate says that he can really relate to what you're saying with much of what you say. I think all of us here can relate to a lot of what you've said. Tibor says, how has the money impacted you and your family?
The money, how's it impacted us and our family? Well, my immediate family, like my husband and my kids, it's been, I can't even, like, it's just been amazing. Like it's been, we are free. So money doesn't make you happy, but being poor doesn't make you happy, right? But money is a tool to get you, it's the exchange. We don't trade cows anymore. We don't trade sheep and stuff like that. We trade money for services, for experiences, for food, for everything. And so to have enough money to truly experience that which you want to experience, to have the time to grow and learn, to read books and to study, to be able to travel, to be able to clothe yourself with what you want, you know, all these sorts of things. When you are able to get to a point where you do something because you want to, not because you can afford it, it changes the way you live. Because when you can live where you make decisions based on, do I want it? And you're not always limiting yourself on how much does it cost, because that's how I live most of my life. And I just did a post on this about money was my God for most of my life, because that was what I always looked to make my decisions for myself. How much did it cost? Can I afford it? And that's how I decided what I would do. Everything from where I lived to where I worked to where I traveled to what I ate, all of that. We went, so having the money to live in a way where we go where we want, we live how we want to live, we spend time with who we want to spend time with. Like my kids, the conscious mind is open to the age of 7. So up until age 7, we are just programmed with whatever's going on around us through parents, culture, church, society, whatever. So my kids are 6 and 3. Right now, they are being programmed in a way where they will grow up understanding and believing that you can create your life however you want. And we don't ever say, I can't afford that, or that costs too much, or that's expensive. They don't hear that. And so they will go into life. It's impacting them on a subconscious level, on a program for the rest of their life. So the money's been huge in order to make it so that money is not a topic. We don't, like, money is not a thing that we like get stressed about or worried about. It's not something we are like, is the subject of our life, because it's there in abundance. So it's a side note, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I think it's really profound. Your children are 3 and 6, you had said, and for them to be in the environment that they're in, I know a lot of us have studied Bruce Lipton, and then the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it basically states that if you come from a poor family, you could try as hard as you want your entire life and probably not succeed, right?
Yep.
If you come from a wealthy family, you could end up not trying very hard and succeed more than the next person. So
Yep.
I think that's just profound how your children are going to go through that kind of experience, right?
Definitely, for sure. Money is it's very easy to make money once you know how, and once you vibrate abundance. It's not a hard thing to do. But if you don't know that, and if you don't feel that, you know, Ford said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. So what you believe is what happens in your life. So if you believe from a young age, which most of us are taught and what we see around us and understand, money is hard to make. You have to work very hard make money. There's never enough. Money doesn't grow on trees. You know, we hear I can't afford it over and over again. So because, you know, I learned this halfway through my son's life and, you know, a year or so into my daughter's life, but I've become very careful what I say around my kids because I know it's going right in.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you ask yourself questions. We can ask ourselves a question such as why, and then we can ask ourselves the other side of the coin, which is why not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important to always consider that, right?
Yeah.
Why and why not? What is it that I want to do, right?
Yeah.
What is it that I do not want to do? And it really opens a door up in that aspect. So I think you've done really well to clarify on that as well. Back to you, Brett.
I think you've got still a couple of other questions. I think we've got, I think you kind of answered it because Wes wanted to know your family's still not supporting you.
Sorry, say that again?
Wes wanted to know whether your family are still not supporting you, which I think you sort of did say kind of is the case. And then Tibor has got, what is your future plans and goals?
My future plans and goals. Well, because money is, you know, kind of I don't want to say off the table, but it's very much of my focus has been so much at the programming of abundance and financial success that I guess I just get to do things now because it's fun and because I enjoy doing it and because I love to do it because it makes me feel good. And there's different levels of awareness, and I'm just studying this right now, so I won't be able to give a good explanation of it, but you kind of get to a point where you live more with, you have a big dream of what you want, and then you live in a more of an inspired action instead of goal setting, like targets. And for me, my desire is just because when you experience something so awesome, it can be something as simple as a movie or a really good meal, you just want to share it with people. And so for me, because I've experienced financial freedom, I've experienced abundance, I experienced freeing from the job, freeing from that weight that you carry of the obligation that you feel you have to have for your whole life. I want to help other people experience what I have experienced. And that's what I do now with, teaching people about multiple sources of income and how to create them for themselves and how to do that so that they can be free to do what they love. And so I have a vision and dream to do that for 1 million people. Brilliant.
That's awesome. And just like we're at the end of the hour, but I'm gonna, and if Mick will share, we've got one last question that we're gonna ask, which
I think, I don't know if you're gonna answer this one or not. Anel's asking, do you ever argue with your husband, or are things always smooth sailing? I think I could probably answer that one for you. However, of course,
we argued on the way here. Usually our arguments revolve around directions and driving, those sorts of things. The big stuff, no. It's just like, as I have learned, Aramai is the more gentle and calm and he's never he doesn't say mean things or that kind of person. Like, he's just naturally has always been that way. I've been the one that's had to do more work on myself to be a nicer and better person, where I can say really hurtful things or be really, so because I'm more of an honest person and it comes out wrong sometimes when I'm honest and I can say things that aren't very nice. And so because I have grown a lot in the last couple years, we definitely argue a lot less, I would say, because usually I'm the instigator of the arguments previously. But yes, of course, we haven't perfected ourselves completely, so we still have arguments.
Well, you're still married, so I mean, yeah. Obviously you're married, probably going to argue, and I think it's not necessarily a bad thing to argue with your spouse, I don't think, or your friends even. The whole concept is to get something out there, and come to a consensus or conclusion or whatever on it.
A lot of times the reason we argue is because we have an expectation on someone else to be something for us. We have an idea of what someone should be. And if that has been one of the greatest gifts for me, and why I am the happiest I've ever been, is because I have learned, because we feel like we're a victim, right? Things are happening to us. People are doing things to us. They're not doing what we want them to do. And the greatest gift has been realizing that I'm the creator of my circumstance. I'm the creator of my reality. And what people do and what happens to me, it's not good or bad. It just is. It's my response and my reaction to it that makes me feel good or bad. And as I had a deepening and as I continue to deepen my understanding about that, I become a happier and happier person, because I am not needing someone else to make me happy. I choose happiness in whatever situation I'm in, and which has been very amazing and powerful for our marriage, because so much of our arguments or frustrations was because I had expectations on him and he on me that he wasn't meeting and that I wasn't meeting. And as we learned that, our happiness is from within and from what we make of a situation, there's not very much to fight about anymore.
That's awesome.
Because the fighting happens because you want somebody to be something for you, for the most part.
That's another great bit of insight, and I think a lot of people may not even realize that. So that's a gem that I wasn't expecting. So thanks for sharing that. But hey, we have reached the end, and I personally want to say thank you so much for detouring off to come and do this meeting. It's it was really truly powerful to me. There's some things that I've got out of it that I've loved, and I'm sure the same goes for everyone else here. So thank you again. Thank you to your family for steering off and joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You're awesome, Brett. Everything that you're doing, what you're creating, I love it. And I definitely want to get on more of these calls, because hearing other people's stories, it increases our belief in what's possible for ourselves. So thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, you're welcome. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.